Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Aurum podcast, where we discuss all things related to building a winning team and a workplace. I'm your host. My name is Tony Kuria. So glad that you could join us. Apologies, we had a bit of delay in starting on time because of technical issues, but here we are. The Aurum podcast is hosted by Aurum Consultants Limited, a human resource and risk advisory consultancy where we help uh, business entities, whether they are non-profit organizations, whether they are SMEs, whether they are corporates, in all facets, whether you're for-profit or non-profit, we help them build winning teams. And I'm so glad that you could join us this final Saturday of the month. Now, with me is a number of individuals who have been working with us at various times in this journey of helping disseminate the various topics regarding the workplace. And first and foremost is the managing director of Aurum Consultants, CHRP, Zipporah Kuria. Welcome, Zippy.
Thank you, Anthony. Good morning, viewers, and thank you for being here with us today. Once again, apologies for the delays, but it's my belief that we will enjoy these conversations and we will learn together.
Thank you, Zippy. And also with us is another HR specialist, CHRP Martha Thuku. Welcome, Martha.
Thank you, Tony, and good morning, viewers. Welcome to our podcast today. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. You know those CHRP titles, yeah, they are major. Yeah, especially when you've just been gazetted in the Kenya Gazette. People have to know. Ladies, welcome. And with us also a senior manager within Aurum Consultants, and a very valued team member within the Aurum Consultants fraternity. Her name is Doreen Wanja. Welcome, Doreen.
Thank you, Tony. Good morning, viewers. Welcome to today's podcast. I hope you are all doing well. Karibuni, and I hope we get to learn and help you and your organizations grow. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, thank you, thank you, Doreen. Indeed, our job is to help organizations grow. Now, this month, we have been having a very informative discussion regarding productivity and performance in the workplace. We have brought, we have managed to host, uh, seasoned entrepreneurs, seasoned and serial entrepreneurs. We have managed to host even some uh, some some experts in various areas. Yeah, and even amongst ourselves, we have brought this discussion one to another regarding various facets of productivity and performance. And today, we want to wrap it up with a discussion regarding productivity and performance, the challenges of monitoring the same, the complexities and the possible solutions through a HR perspective. Now, today is a webinar, so we are going to discuss. So if you are out there, you've been hearing this topic, you've been seeing us talk about productivity and performance. Probably you had a question that you thought to ask. Kindly throw them in. We will take time to discuss these issues that are, especially if you are in management, whether you're in HR, whether you're in finance, whether you're in administration, whether you are in strategy, marketing, sales, you are in production. The question of productivity and performance is a very big uh, issue to deal with. And today we want to deconstruct this in a nice way, to discuss various perspectives and see how can businesses, how can even non-profit organizations inspire better productivity and higher performance within their workplace. So, Zippy, let me start with you. Now, the first question that pops up to anyone who is slightly aware of this discussion is, what is the essence of measuring performance? Why do we measure performance? Why do we in the workplace? Uh, is it, are we becoming hard taskmasters in saying we want to measure what each person delivers in the workplace, from the cook to the guard at the door to the marketing intern to the chief executive officer? Anyone in the workplace has their performance measured. What is the essence of this?
Well, thank you, Anthony, for that question. And, like I always keep on saying, what is not measured is not done or
Mm.
cannot be achieved. You have to measure to be able to actually say, this is what I've been able to do. And just before we delve into this conversation, I think I just want to remind us what performance management is. And let's just look at this from the scholar's perspective, Michael Armstrong, and he says performance management is a continuous process of improving performance by setting individual and team goals which are aligned to the strategic goals of the organization, planning performance to achieve the goals, reviewing and assessing progress, and developing knowledge, skills, and abilities of people. And I think this definition is so critical into our conversation today. Just understanding what is really this performance, who involved, how are they involved, what do we need to do to really understand. And just coming back to your question, I think it's important for us to realize that performance is an ongoing process and it's not something that you can just say I will do reviews at the end of the year or I will do reviews mid-year. Is something that actually requires a system that will help your supervisors, your managers effectively and efficiently assess how your people are doing, reward them, correct where things are not working well. And those who have worked with me, you've heard me talk about, if you're going to do performance management effectively, you need to actually monitor daily how your people are doing. You need to actually do the one-on-ones, whether you do them weekly, whether you do them bi-weekly or monthly, because this actually sums up the performance management at the end of the year or the mid-year when you're doing your reviews. But if you sit down and say you will do your reviews at the end of the year or mid-year, the truth is I think you will be able to miss the point, and a lot of issues that have occurred along the way will not be rectified. I've seen scenarios where an employee is being reviewed at the end of the year, and you're being told you've not been performing, yet the non-performance did not just happen. It's been actually a process. It's been very progressive. So I believe it should be a continuous process, and this way, I think we'll be able to understand. So just to understand the essence of this performance management, why we even doing it in the first place. And businesses are there to make profits. Businesses are there to be able to drive revenues. And if we are not having that as a core of the business, then the truth again of measuring performance and understanding the importance of it could become a challenge. And when you're looking at performance management, we have to remember that we work with people, we work with employees. And the employees at the end of the day are the ones who will help us deliver our services, deliver our goods to the customer. And I think it's important for us to help them understand, why do we need them to understand this issue of performance management, because it's aligned to the organization's strategic objectives, it's aligned to their own growth, it's aligned to delivering the services or the products to the customers. So very important for us to just understand, as employees, we need actually to measure our own performance, because it does not just help the organization, but it helps me as an employee. Again, so much is also dependent on the employees, and you need to also ask yourself as an employer, how am I helping this employee? Because you have to remember, a fulfilled employee at the end of the day is the one who is serving your valued customer, and it creates an environment where people are happy, people are willing to to give more than they should be giving. But does it just come? I don't think so. We have to work towards that. When you're looking at performance from a deeper perspective, we need to be able to see, what are we looking at achieving at the end of the day, whether we are looking at our goals for 2022, how did we plan for it? We are coming to 2023. How are we planning for it? We want our people to be able to perform. We want them to be able to deliver. But how are we planning for it? Because we have to plan for performance management. So I think, just to put it in a nutshell, the essence of performance management at the end of the day helps people understand why they're here, where we are going, and why we are going there, and how we need to get there. Um, when you put performance management in place and you help the people understand, then people or managers who are dealing with the people on the ground are able to actually address issues as they come along, because that's part of performance management. Being able to address those issues, being able to help people understand how to do it better, and being able to actually, reward, the people who are performing better. So I think there's a lot that we can be able to get from this discussion, but important for us to understand, how is it connected to our business objectives? How is it connected to the strategic objectives of the business? Back to you, Anthony.
Thank you, Zippy. Indeed, there's a very clear idea about the essence of managing performance when it comes to why you're employed, what you're doing there, why the company exists, where you've been employed, and where it's going. Martha, from your perspective, you've been both in the for-profit sector with very competitive in a very competitive environment. For example, in the banking sector, you've also been in the NGO non-profit sector. You've been there as a senior executive in both places. What's your view regarding the essence of managing performance?
Looks like we have lost Matt Anthony.
Yeah. All right. As Martha reconnects, Doreen, from what you have seen, in essence, you're the boots on the ground. You have dealt at the sharp end of managing people in your perspective as an officer and as a manager. What do you think about, from your perspective, what do you think is the essence of measuring performance?
Okay, thank you so much, Tony. Maybe if I can start by giving an example.
Yeah.
I've worked in an institution where they did not have performance measuring. So the moment it began, the first question that the employees on the ground are asking is why?
Mm,
Is this a way for you to pull us out? Is this a way for you to get out of this place, to get us out of this place and bring in new and different people? We've been serving
mm,
here for 10, 15 years. Why are you doing this now? It's
mm,
too late to begin.
mhm,
So, and the key thing about measuring performance, and I think we raised this in a previous podcast,
mm,
it's about the culture, the overall culture of the institution.
mm,
What culture are we setting as an institution? We want a culture that is a culture of continuous improvement for the employee and a
mm,
culture of continuous growth.
mm.
Measuring performance is a very critical process for an institution because it helps to align the goals of the individual employee with the
Yes.
goals of the organization. So at the
Yes.
beginning of a performance review, goals are set.
Yes.
After a period of time, they are reviewed.
Mm.
Are they in line? So
Yes.
that's a
Uh-huh.
very critical and very important aspect of measuring performance. And the other thing I think that is an essence of measuring performance is to be able to give feedback.
Mm, mm.
When you get feedback from your managers, when you get feedback from your employees on which processes are not working, you are able to improve.
Yes.
And that's where you will see that your organization and your employees, you are on the right track.
Mm,
You all have a same vision, you have the same mission, you have the same goal. And at the end of a certain period of time, everything will be just flowing.
mm, mm.
I think that's what I have to say about the essence of measuring performance.
Thank you, Doreen. Actually, you have actually spoken like somebody who has been practically on the ground from a HR perspective, especially the issue of fear of using performance, measuring of performance for purposes of culling or weeding people off. That's a very genuine fear because I have seen it years back, several years back, when I was working for a for a multinational. When that culture of now performance management began, actually, those fears were right. There were people, some companies were using the issues of performance to as a what do you call it, Trojan horse to get rid of people whom they are thinking probably they are earning very big salaries, their pension, what's the word? The pension uh, requirements for the company to pay off were also very big. So the issue of performance appraisals and performance management was used as a Trojan horse to get rid of individuals. So those fears are there. And from a HR perspective, it's very important that if you're intending to create a culture of continuous improvement, then you've got to reassure people, especially if it's beginning for the first time, if it's not been a culture of the company, then it's very important to reassure employees that this is not a sickle to weed off people that we consider undesirables, but as a way to to deliberately enhance a culture of continuous improvement. Martha, I know your camera is still off, but I think you're hearing us. From your perspective, having, as I said, you have been in both non-profit and corporate environments. What's your take concerning the essence of measuring performance?
Okay, thanks, Anthony. And so I just wanted to add what the two ladies have said. Uh, the most important thing to note is that performance measures are metrics by which an organization uh, measures or gauges its performance. So I think I'm using the same word to explain. But metrics is what you actually can actually quantify. Uh, Let me use the word quantify. For example, for profit, you need to quantify how much profit you're making. Uh, it may be metrics of stock prices, a metrics of your sales. You know, when you do this, it will help you identify your weaknesses, your strengths, where you're improving, and even the areas of improvement. So it is important to have performance metrics so that you don't just do things without quantifying what you are doing. And as VP says, it helps people know how you are performing. Even as an individual, it helps the organization know where they are doing. Are we making profit? Are we in
Mm,
the business? Or are we losing? Or are we gaining? What do we need to do to add ourselves? What else do we need to do? What strategies do we need to take out and bring new ones? So that's how metrics help you. When you quantify them and call them by name, if it sales, call sales by name. What are the sales metrics? And you compare with other comparators so that see where you are standing versus what the market is doing, so that you know what to do and remain in profitability and even for competitive advantage. Thank you very much. That's what I wanted to add.
thank you, Martha. Indeed, you have brought the issue regarding why we have essence of performance, and because the way all of you have actually said, performance actually being measured in your performance is actually a good thing for an employee. So that first of all, you know where you stand, you know what is expected of you, you know where the company is going, you know how you're playing a part in that journey where the company is going, And from management and ownership of the business entity, you also use that first of all for corporate strategy, and at the same time as a tool to enforce a culture of continuous improvement among many other benefits. And to you, a viewer and our listener, you may be listening and you're saying, okay, I had a point there that didn't sound quite correct, or I would want to emphasize on a point that I had. Kindly posting your questions, posting your comments as we continue. We will sample them live, we will discuss them, even we will highlight your name as we discuss them, and as we maneuver this topic. As you all would understand, this is a very wide topic. In fact, I was telling our panelists before we went live. This is a discussion that can go another 2 3 months because there's so many facets when it comes to productivity and performance. Zippy, let me come back to you. Now that we have discussed the essence of measuring the performance, the next question then comes: what are the challenges of monitoring productivity? We have performance, people are performing, but yes, they may be coming and they are working very hard. But what is their productivity? I may be working very hard, and my job is to what's the word? Probably my job is to make sure that I produce invoices by the 25th of the month. But am I being productive? You know, at the end of the day, am I being productive? So, Zippy, what are the challenges of monitoring productivity? Let's hear from you.
Anthony, I think, to be very honest, I think this is where the rubber meets the road, monitoring productivity, because it's work. It's
Mm,
and you find it's a challenge for not just the employee but also for the managers, sometimes even for the management, because no one wants to put in all the work into tracking and monitoring and
mhm,
giving the reports. Yet it's what we must do, is what we need to do, because if you don't do this, the truth is you'll not be able to move forward. I don't know whether you've ever wondered why you will find probably two companies that are doing the same thing, and one company seemingly is doing pretty very well, they are growing and things are changing. Another company probably is stuck at the same place for 10 years. And sometimes
mm,
when you look and dive into it, you will realize it's actually what is happening on the ground, whether they are setting goals and those goals are being measured. And if they're not being measured, then what needs to be done? So there's constant improvement, there's constant questioning and asking, how can we move from one place to another? If you look at your own life, if you just go back and look at what you've been able to actually monitor and measure and be very deliberate about, you will realize you have made a lot of progress. But
mm,
where you have not monitored, you have not measured, you have no clue, you have no idea actually what's going on, or it's very vague, you can't really put a hand into it. So I would say this issue of monitoring productivity and performance is the essence of actually being able to be successful. And what are some of the challenges? Because there are many challenges. I think one of them is having or being in a situation where there are no clear goals, there are no clear
mhm,
objectives, both for the
mhm,
business and for the employees. I've seen in situations where you find the organization expects the employees to perform, the employees to measure performance, but the organization does not have very clear objectives. There's no clear
mm,
strategic plan, there's no clear KPIs for the organization, yet you expect the people working to actually measure performance. And of course, that means that whole system is a bit skewed and you
mm,
can't be able to measure that. It becomes very difficult. So I think that is one of the biggest challenges. Just understanding this performance, understanding the metrics, understanding what needs to be done, and actually
mm,
starting to put very clear objectives for the employees and also for the business. The other challenge I've seen is where you find this employee disengagement. The employees are not engaged. The employees probably are even resisting the system. And I think Doreen has alluded to this, where you start implementing this system in an organization and people are looking at it like you're using it as a weapon, or they're looking at it as a bad thing. And I always
mm,
say performance, I think, is one of the best strategies I think the HR fraternity has innovated on, because if you don't measure what you're doing, the truth is you can't achieve anything. So what does that
Mm,
mean? Do I just want to be mediocre? Do I want to grow? So again, this disengagement, I think, is something we need to think about it as employers, even as an employee. I need to figure out, why am I disengaged? Why am I finding this discussion about performance so difficult? And how can I get connected so that I can be able to move with everyone else? The other challenge you will find is where there are not no tracking systems in place. So we have said, okay, we are doing performance management, but how are we tracking it? Because if you're not
mm,
tracking it, then it becomes difficult to monitor what's happening. And
mm,
Doreen will tell you, I mean, you have to literally track performance. You have to put systems and processes in place for you to be able to know actually what every person is up to and what they are doing. And you can actually be able to say from a data driven perspective that actually this person is not performing. Why? Because you
mm.
have put a system in place. When there's no system in place, then there's no way you can say people are not performing. I've seen scenarios where you'll find a manager or even a director will say this employee is not performing. And you'll go back and ask, okay, what is it based on? And it's based
Exactly.
basically on feelings. It based on probably I've just observed. It's not based on anything. You have not set any performance metrics. You have not set any tracking systems, or you have not put it in place. Yet you say this person is not performing. So who is failing here? I think as business people, we need to actually rise up and be able to be the examples and set the way forward, and show our teams the direction, that we are setting clear KPIs, not just for them, or we're not asking them to set their KPIs, but as a director, I'm actually setting KPIs for the business. And I'm able to actually be vulnerable and say, as a business, this is what we've been able to do. As a business, this is where we have reached. This is what we have done. This is what we have not done. And not justify what we have not done, but basically be open and be able to give feedback. The
Mm,
other thing I think is sometimes we have unrealistic expectations. And when you have unrealistic expectations, sometimes it becomes very difficult to actually meet any set targets. And even
mm,
that tracking, I think you start getting bogged down, and you get weighed down because the goals that have been set are not realistic, or they are not achievable, and you're struggling, you know. And
mm,
why do we need to set these realistic goals? Because we need to achieve them. We need to be able to see the milestones. You need to be able to break down a big goal into smaller, chunks that you can bite, and you track
mm,
that. And at the end of the day, I think when you're seeing the results, then it becomes easier for you to want to actually move a little bit faster. When there are no results and you're not able to track, then what will be the oil, what will be the fuel that will fuel you to do something bigger, something better? So I think we need to honestly look at these challenges. Some of these challenges I think are self-made. We have created
mm.
ourselves within the organization,
Correct.
and we need to actually just face ourselves and address these challenges. Are they difficult to resolve? No, they are not. And I believe that's why we are here as Aurum consultants, and we're able to support you. If you have a challenge on how to actually understand performance management, even as a director, reach out
Mm.
to us, or reach out to a professional who will help you understand what does this mean, because you need to drive your business towards the right direction, and you need to help your people understand this is the direction we are taking as a business.
Thank you, Zippy. You have indeed brought some hard truths, yeah, some hard truths that business people face out there, managers. And one of the managers who faces these hard truths is our colleague here, Doreen. Because Doreen, there you are. You are, I'm sure this is something you deal with on a daily basis. So, from a practical aspect, we talk about, yeah, directors, this and that. From your perspective, Doreen, having been there, done that as a HR manager, managing a whole HR department, and productivity and performance is all the rage. What's your perspective? What do you think, from your perspective, are the challenges you would face in monitoring productivity?
Thank you, Tony. Today's conversation is very interesting, and in the beginning we said that it's a conversation that we can't, it's a conversation that will go on and that can't end with 2 or 3 months of streaming it. But for the challenges of monitoring productivity, I look at it from an aerial view, from different angles. And I want to begin it from the biggest receiver of monitoring productivity, who is the employee. So, as an institution, when you're monitoring productivity, the first thing, which is the biggest challenge for the employees, is the employee will be afraid of being termed as a failure. So you are holding this employee accountable. You set goals at the beginning. You are now coming to review. Have you achieved goal 1, 2, 3? Have you achieved goal A, B, C? So at the end of this period, you're coming to sit down and you're realizing, I did not achieve. I achieved this. Why didn't I achieve goal B? Why did I achieve goal A? Was it easier? What was stopping me from achieving goal B? Did I ask or seek my manager's support or clarity? So the employee will be afraid of being termed as a failure. And because we are all human beings and you don't want to be dubbed a failure, what do? You will rather exit the organization. The other challenge of monitoring productivity is an employee will feel like they are being micromanaged, which is a very interesting a very interesting point, because you're being held accountable. You do not want to feel like the supervisor is always on your toes, following up, checking how far you are. You will feel at the end of the day like, mimi huyu mdosi anani supervise too much. I need a breather, I need space. Aside from now monitoring productivity to the employee and those challenges that I have mentioned, the other challenge of monitoring productivity is now to the managers. Do they have the know-how how to monitor this productivity? Do they have the training? Do they have the right skills to be objective when they are monitoring productivity? As an organization, what steps are we taking to ensure that these line managers, they are not monitoring productivity from a feelings perspective, or from a feeling of, I don't like this employee, or they are challenging me, they want my job as a leader, all of that. Have we trained these managers to be able to monitor productivity? Now, when I look at the challenges of monitoring productivity from an employer's perspective, have we set the right tools to monitor productivity from the beginning? What systems, what processes have we put in place? And these processes need to be very transparent without the employee feeling like they are being attacked or like it's a witch hunt. So monitoring productivity has its own challenges, but easily, which is the next aspect that we will handle in the next conversation or in the next question, is what responses or what steps are we taking to be able to overcome these challenges? So we'll be able to help our viewers, both our employees and our employers, to be able to know how to handle these challenges that they are experiencing on the ground to monitor productivity.
Wow, Lorraine. Hey, you have really, I like the way you have put it. You've brought from an employee's perspective, which, okay, I admit, sometimes when we're in the podcast, sometimes we don't hear from how does an employee feel. And then on the other side, there is the issue of you being a HR manager, you know what an employer thinks when it comes to productivity. And some of the issues Doreen you brought up, there are things that are real. There are things that are there. For example, fear of failure. You think, okay, you're being monitored. So you think, okay, I've been told if I'm a sales guy, I need to be bringing X amount of clients or Y amount of products to be sold. Or if you are a production manager, you need to be producing let's say it's in a factory, you need to be producing a certain number of products at this particular cost, because that is how productivity is measured. And you're thinking, I can't achieve it. The margins are too thin. The margin of failure is too thin. And you have also brought the issue of being the fear of being micromanaged. Yeah, that comes with moderate. Ladies, and especially Doreen, you do not need your supervisor breathing on your neck every morning. You just need to be seeing figures every morning showing this week you have achieved 25% of your weekly target, and it is on Thursday, and the weekly target is on Saturday, and you have achieved 45%. Then it's accumulated to next week because there are places things happen. You're told you have reached, so far on the 14th of the month, you have only attained 25% of the monthly target. You do not need somebody to be monitoring you, breathing on your neck, telling you, Doreen, Zippy, why are you not reaching your target? The figures in front of your screen make you start having water every morning that you enter the office. So, yeah, so those fears are there. But I also like the fact that you've said uh, know how of those that are managing productivity to know what they are doing. Those are the challenges. Indeed, those are very salient challenges. And I like that perspective. And to your viewers, I say today we are discussing. If you have an idea of the questions that you're bringing in, issue, for example, ZP has talked about a data-driven perspective that comes to monitoring productivity. It's not about feelings. It's not like that employee, ule sijuangi anafanya nini. By the way, what do you do here? Data. We have data to show Tony, this is what Tony does. This is what Zippy does. This is what Doreen does. I'm employed there to be, say, you are, for example, Doreen, you are a HR manager. Probably the issue is how many performance reviews have been done, have you managed to have done this quarter of that is coming fourth quarter. So data says you are at say 70% of whatever of performance reviews. So that is data. It's not a feeling. Somebody else who we think ule afanyangi kazi, but data shows they are probably the leading staff in a certain category. So the issues of data are very, very, very critical. And I like that conversation. Unfortunately, Martha is not here. I would have loved, Martha is struggling to remain live. I would have loved to hear from her perspective these challenges, how they are handled. Now, as we wind up, Zippy, as we wind up this conversation, then the question is, and I know this is not the final question in this particular discussion, but it's good as we come up to a close. Then, how can we effectively monitor employee performance? I am sure there's somebody out there who wonders, okay, you guys have brought it practically and theoretically, from a consultant and from a practical perspective, from an employer and an employee perspective. So, how I am running a business, tell me, how do I effectively monitor employee performance? Zippy, give us your opinion in a few words.
Thank you, Anthony. I like what Doreen was sharing. And it's true. Sometimes people will feel like they are being micromanaged. But the truth is, if you're going to implement performance management, there's no way you can alleviate that feeling. But is it something that is helpful to you as an employee? I believe so, because initially it might feel like that, but I think when you get the hang of it, then no one needs to be on your shoulders to actually get things done, because already there's a system in place. And what happens? The system will actually make you do what you're supposed to do. It's like when we are talking about disciplinary management, and it's so funny because I remember I was training someone, and someone asked me the question, who terminates an employee, and I explained to them, and I said that it's a whole process. It's not just one person making a decision. Actually, the system makes the decision for you because a system has been put in place. So I think the same with performance management. When there's a system in place, then even as an employee, you get to a place where no one needs to push you, no one needs to be on your shoulders to do what you're supposed to do, it becomes easier for you, it becomes probably more automatic. But just to come back to your question about how we can monitor performance, I don't think you can monitor what you have not put clearly, or what you have not said clearly it is that you need to achieve. You need first to be able to set very clear, measurable, and actionable goals. Clear,
Mm.
measurable, and actionable goals. Because sometimes we say you need to set SMART goals, but what does this mean? It means they need to be very clear. It means they need to be measurable. It means they need to be actionable. It means, there's a time frame to it, and when we put all these together, it needs to make a lot of sense. When we are talking about the goals, we talk about key performance indicators. What would show that I've actually achieved this goal? There has to be very key performance indicators that both me as a manager and both the employee actually understand this is what is going to be measured. Before we even look at the key performance indicators, we need to look at the key result areas. What are the objectives? What is a key result area? What are we looking at achieving at the end of the day? Because if there's no objective, or there's no key result area we are looking at, then, I mean, how are we even going to set this key performance indicator? And I think sometimes we get so confused with all these terminologies, and we'll set a key performance indicator, but it's based on what? What are you trying to achieve here? You know, you need to be able to see what is the main objective, what is the key result area you're looking at the end of the day, then come up with the key performance indicators, and also make sure now you have the SMART goals that would help you have the set. I mean, it would help you set the clear, measurable, and actionable goals. The other thing that we can do to help us monitor performance is capture productivity data with the employee performance tracker. It's very important for us to have a way of tracking how employees are working. Put a system in place, even if it means a manual system, an Excel system. If you don't have an HR system, you can have a symbol tool that you can be able to use to track. Because if you're not going to track, then again, the challenges we are talking about earlier will be seen. So you need to actually track. The other challenge, or the other way to monitor performance is making sure you are having regular meetings and having a structured reporting way of people reporting. Reports are so critical. Yet I see always, most of the time, we fight reports. We don't want to do reports. We don't, want to be accountable, like Dorina has mentioned. And it's very important for us to set, as leaders, we need to make sure we are regularly meeting with our people. We need to make sure we are getting the reports. And if our team doesn't know how to do these reports, or the kind of reports that are required, we need to train them, we need to coach them, we need to mentor them, we need to help them understand what is required. I always say, and I've talked about this again, the one-on-ones. And successful monitoring of employee performance starts with making a routine, regular, and continuous one-on-one meetings. It has to be routine, it has to be regular. Doreen will tell you about routine, because there are some things, if you don't put them as a routine, even for top managers, it will never work. So it will work for a shorter period of time. Then what happens? The ball is dropped somewhere. But when it's routine and it's continuous, believe me, at the end of the day, people will actually do what they're supposed to do. The other day I was talking to one of our clients, and it's just amazing where the world is in terms of just the 21st century and the world of AI. And I remember a couple of years back we were talking about AI, and we thought robots will never, take the place of people. But believe me, we need to travel. We need to see what is happening in other countries. We need to move from being third world country to seeing what is happening in the world, because sooner or later it will catch up with us. It's like when you talked about mobile phones, 20 years back, no one ever thought, the usage of internet and usage of the computers and phones will be where it is today. Our young children now, are computer literate, from 1 year old, and you're wondering, where's the world going? So when you're looking at performance and looking at where the world is going, The truth is we need to catch up very fast, otherwise we will be rendered obsolete. Things will
Mm,
happen and we'll wonder what happened. Okay. The other thing I believe we need to do is self-monitoring. As an
mhm,
employee, I need to be able to actually monitor yourself. And this is so critical for me because I think if I monitor myself, I'll be able to understand where the priorities lie. I'll be able to understand what needs to be done now, what is urgent, what is important, what can be done later. I'll be able to actually distinguish between all this, and I'll be able to set myself up for success. So self
mm.
monitoring, I think, is also very important. And of course, we need to do this working in tandem with organization objectives, with organizational goals and the strategic plan. If we are going to say at the end of the year, I have honestly performed and I have achieved. And I think that's my contribution to that, Anthony. Back to you.
Brilliant, brilliant. Those are really good points there, especially when you spoke about structured reporting and having a routine, a routine a routine of having reports, say, on a weekly basis, and all that. Those are things that are difficult to start. It's just like an individual. You decide you're going to go to the gym, and you go 1 week, you go 2 weeks, you go 1 month. You're thinking, man, I'm dying here. Let me give myself a break. And you find that you've slipped back to where you were before. So, indeed, monitoring performance, and especially also the aspect of self monitoring, is those are very good points. Doreen, from your perspective, I'm liking using you because you're practical. You are right there on the ground, monitoring and being monitored. What's your take? From a professional perspective, what's your take of what it takes to effectively monitor performance?
Um, Maybe I can begin by saying that there's this famous quotes about delaying, eh?
Mm,
And delay is the enemy of progress. Or is it procrastination? Procrastination is the enemy of progress.
mm,
And what I can say about effectively monitoring an employee performance is that start. It's never too late to start.
mhm,
You can't say I have two employees. Those ones are not enough to start monitoring their performance. Start immediately. Set the goals from the beginning. Set the goals from the onboarding process.
mm,
When you are onboarding an employee, give them their JD, and this JD has the key result areas that this employee is expected
mhm.
to deliver on. And when all of this is in place and is in motion, an employee will come into an organization and they will know, can I deliver or can I not?
Yes.
It is very critical when, as an institution, we set the expectations from the beginning. And
Mhm,
as my colleague Zipporah has said, when you set goals, you need to set goals that are very realistic. You set
mhm,
these expectations from the beginning. That way, when the employee is going on with their daily activities, with their daily routines, they know, am I in line with what my goals that I set in the beginning stipulated? The
mhm.
other thing is to track the progress and on a regular basis, just as Zipporah has said. Tracking will be of no value if you're tracking in January and the next time you are tracking is in December. It will not make sense. In between, what will we be doing? Regular tracking is very critical because it acts as a point at which an employee goes round on. They are able to have feedback and they are able to know which areas to improve on, and they are able to get this feedback that is very critical to be able to know which areas to improve on and which areas that are not related to their job.
Mhm,
So monitoring employee performance, of course, is very critical, and it's a conversation that we can't say tumemaliza. We shouldn't
mhm,
discuss about it any further. Performance Our employees are the resource of the organization, and continuous feedback is something that we should continue to give if possible, on a daily basis. The clients that we work with, as
Mm.
Aurum consultants, they are clients that give you instant feedback, instant, there and then. This is going well, this is not going well. Because even us as Aurum consultants, we are accountable to the clients.
Mm.
We are employees at some on some level, and these clients give us feedback, because as Aurum, they give us feedback as Aurum consultants, to tell us, Aurum consultant, this is not working, payroll
Mm.
should be done by this and this day, why is performance reviews on the grounds not being done, all of that.
Mhm.
So even us as Aurum consultants, we get this feedback, and it helps. It's like the wheel that keeps Aurum, the Aurum vehicle, moving. It's the wheel. The feedback is like the oil that keeps the Aurum vehicle moving.
Mm. Mm. Wow, wow, Doreen, I like that practical aspect where you are bringing beyond the monitoring and measuring. There is also an accountability, even from management, even from a consultant's perspective. You've got to to find a way. As you monitoring others, you're also being monitored as a manager. Even a chief executive is being monitored by a board of directors or by whoever is up there. Martha, we have missed your wisdom in a
I'm
few of
so
these
sorry,
ideas.
guys. My internet just brought challenges, but I'm back.
You're back
Welcome
Yes,
now.
back.
thank
Yes,
you.
yes, we are coming towards the end. So I want to hear your perspective uh, from from your years of experience at a senior HR managerial level. Then how can we effectively monitor employee performance? What's your perspective, Matt, on that?
Thanks, Anthony. And this topic is very dear to me. And I remember when we have been talking, we keep saying culture is the main thing, the organization culture in every area of running the organization. The other thing is strategy. You must
Mhm.
have a strategy. You must be able to communicate that strategy to your staff so that they understand. In one of the answers I left Zippy talking, she said that do the employees understand what they are doing? What are their job roles? So
Mm.
to effectively monitor employee performance, they must have kind of a JD, you know.
Mm.
Um, so everything we are doing, we are not saying by mouth that do A, B, C, D. There's a JD, and out of the JD, you are able to develop some key performance indicators, which will
Mm.
guide each employee what they need to do. And
Mm.
it is these key performance indicators that will help monitor employee performance. In
Mhm.
in organizations I have worked with, we always would set key performance goals at the
Mm.
beginning of the year.
Mhm.
So there's target setting or goal setting, and there's something we call media.
Mhm.
I'm sure my ladies here have mentioned this. I'm hoping I'm not repeating a lot, but we will have media reviews for you're just monitoring employee performance, and then
Yes.
you check whether those goals are aligning. Are there some that you need to drop? Do you need to pick some? And then once you do that, then you continue, and then we would have something we call annual appraisal, where each person is measured with the goals that they set within. So the goals, the actual is measured against the set targets, and
Mm.
within that kind of model, then there is check-ins, and that is how to effectively monitor employee performance, even when there is this structured way of monitoring, there has to be manager employee check-ins now and then. So
Mhm.
we call it ongoing communication. So once you have that, then you find that you are able, you at every stage, you know, the employee A, first of all, know what they are doing, and the manager is able to measure even the employee skills in even delivering this performance that they are supposed to do. And where you find a skill gap, it is very easily filled, and it can be filled in various ways, at sending people to school, doing on-job training, and this enhances the employee performance, because once you identify the skills that are missing, you're able also to fill the gaps. So
Mhm.
you are able to effectively monitor continuously during the year. And then there is
Mhm.
also the organizational performance. So that's why we talked about metrics. I worked with an organization that used to say, let the numbers sing.
Mhm.
So it is so actual. You're measuring the actual. It is not a song that oh, I did, I went, I came. It is numbers that are talking. This is what I
Mhm.
agreed to do. This is what I have done. And this is how I have developed within the course of the year. Because then, if you're monitoring my performance, you're able to fill the gaps of my skills so that I can even do better for the organization. That's what I'll add to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martha. Indeed, we needed to hear that from you. And especially as we come to the close of the year and even to the end of this podcast. Martha, you've discussed something regarding gaps, skills gaps. And one of the areas that we can help our customers here at Aurum Consultants is training, and especially training on performance management. And now that the year is coming to a close and 2023 is right here, you need to start the year right. And we here at Aurum Consultants are NITA certified. And if you get your training through us, you can be able to benefit from that by claiming the any expenses that you spend on training through Aurum Consultants, you can be able to to seek reimbursement. Now, and therefore, we request that if you have, particularly on performance management, you have gaps in performance management, and you're wondering, okay, this guy is a graduate, we hired him, and and we are wondering how do we set up a system that is data driven? How do we come up with, as Doreen said, you do not have to have 15, 20 employees to to institute a system of performance and productivity management. You can begin even when you have two, and you can get in touch with us here at Aram Consultants. We would be glad to help you set the tone right for the year, set the tone right for your team, and you have the added benefit of being able to make to claim if you are registered with NITA. Having said that, we've come to the end of our podcast today. We're so glad that you could join us this morning, despite the few hitches that we had here and there. And if you'd like to know more about Aurum Consultants, our contacts are at the bottom of the screen. You can get in touch with us via LinkedIn, via Facebook, via email. Our email address is www.aurumconsultants.co.ke, even by phone. We would be glad to be able to set up a meeting, discuss the challenges that you are facing, and looking forward to be a better and more productive 2023. Ladies, thank you very much for your insights. We are very appreciative, Martha, for the insights that you brought in. Doreen, we are very appreciative from the practical, boots on the ground kind of perspective that you brought. And Zippy, thank you very much for the perspectives that you've also brought in. And to you, our viewer and our listener, thank you for taking your time to join with us. Next month, beginning of December, we have a topic closer to what we are talking about. But really, in December, we are going to bring in discussions regarding setting yourself right for 2023. Specifically, we'll be discussing setting your goals and KPIs for 2023. So make sure you join us, same time, same place, Saturday morning, via YouTube. Kindly, Facebook and YouTube. Kindly make sure you join with us so that we can see what is 2023 bringing for us. Unaona, kumenyesha mzuri sana, wakulima wanajiandaa Januari, Februari, kuna mavuno. Wewe utavuna nini ikifika mwisho wa 2023? So make sure join us as we continue discussing how to build winning teams. I'm your host, Tony Kuria. Thank you very much for joining us. God bless you and have a nice weekend.